Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to try and give you a bit of overall class feedback on the most recent essay. So, what I would like you to do, if possible, have your own essay and the feedback I've given you on Firefly in front of you so you can add notes and corrections to it. I know this isn't necessarily the best and the easiest way to do it. But there are chances for you to pause it, to read through it, and I've tried to show you some good examples and different styles as well. Um, so if we crack straight on, some of the key errors. Um, Look, I did these videos. I know they're not to everybody's taste, but it is important that you follow the instructions on the video. Watch them 2 or 3 times if you need to. Make notes alongside them. There are also PowerPoints that are on Firefly that go with these as well. I should have made that clearer, but there are all the information there. So you've got all the planning documents and things like that. These essays are very different to anything you've done in the past. And if you follow the simple advice that I give you, it's going to make it a lot easier. Now, when you get really well versed and good at these, then you can start developing your own written style. But for now, I want you to follow the patterns that I'm giving you and the structures that I'm giving you so we can see you've got the key elements that you will be marked on in there. And you can see that virtually all of these relate to not looking in the video in detail enough or not following the information that I've given. The other key thing was, and this is quite normal, don't worry about it. It's very early on. I would expect people to struggle with this early on. And then, with more and more feedback, we can make improvements as we go through. But make sure you are always focused on the question and repeat wording from the question to keep you focused in there. So again, I asked you to look at this. What were the common command words, the focus, the restrictions, and the unwritten part of the question? And this was the information I wanted you to see in there. Again, I asked you to look at the specification to see the bits of information that you could be talking about. And as I give you new essays, I'm going to reduce the amount of support that I give you, but you still need to undertake all of these stages. For too many of the essays, I wasn't seeing the key terms in there. Some of you were going on about the hazard profiles. We're looking at human and natural features. They don't. The hazard profiles purely relate to these things here. So it's important that you know the information from the specification and you follow the advice and guidance that I give you. These were the key terms I wanted to see in your essays, and yet still a number of you weren't relating to them. I said that you didn't need to include all of them, but you certainly needed to include at least 3 of these different ones from the hazard profile, and then a choice of 3 of these as well for your counterpoints. Okay, so it's really important you do follow those instructions. I give you the structure for the essay. Yeah, again, very simple. And we'll have a look at this in a bit more detail. But I wanted you, the introduction, I even gave you a bit of a writing frame for that, which you can see here. And I can't understand why, if you're given that writing frame in these first instances, I need you to be doing this. So you should have just started off saying, what is a hazard profile? What are the key elements of it? The factor, the severity of impacts based on other factors in the risk equation, such as vulnerability, capacity to cope, and the hazard itself. These can also be influenced by governance and levels of development and physical factors. So please make sure you're following the instructions I've given you. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to read through this and compare the 2 different introductions you see in front of you, first of all. Which is done, which I've asked you to do, which of the one includes a description of the key terms in the question. So just pause the video now and have a read through. So if we look at both of these, we have a look at this one. Well, it talks about its magnitude, areal extent, but watch the spelling of that there. Frequency and speed of onset, good. But these factors allow people compare between events, but also judge and understand the severity. Okay, that's okay. But like all methods, they do have some negative aspects which may make them less important. Okay, so that's good. But it's forgotten to put in what the other factors are. It's not mentioned the fact of governance and levels of development. If we look over to this one on the right hand side, we can see it's really simple, but it's got all of the areas of assessment objective 1 knowledge. So it's shown that from the specification, you know what a hazard profile is, you know what factors influence the level of impact, and what those factors are influenced by again. So an introduction can be nice and simple. Have a read through your introduction now and compare it in particular to this one, but also to the notes that I'd made in the video. Have you done what I've asked you to do? Have you got those 3 elements in there? So have a look at that, pause the video if you want, and come back to it in a moment. Now, what we're going to do now then is we're going to look at 3 different paragraphs. So I'm going to ask you just to pause the video and read each of the paragraphs. Make notes on them if you want to, and then we'll come back to them. So here's the first one, and if you pause it now. Here is the next one. Pause it now and read through. And here is the next one. So you can pause that now and read through. So if you've come to this bit of the video and you've not read paragraphs A, B, and C, then you're not following my instructions. Go back, rewind, and do it, please. So if we have a look at this paragraph. Now, remember, I said to you that I want to see that explicit judgment in the start of it. And I want it to relate to one of the elements of the hazard profile. Now, this is talking about other factors: population density, accessibility, degree of urbanization. These are relevant. It also goes on to mention magnitude. So it's got some of the key factors in there, but there's no real structure. You know, it talks about the traditional strategy of coping, identifying potential hazards is done by hazard basis. This means they're treated in a very unique way. What does this do to answer the question? How is it saying that magnitude is important in determining the severity of an impact, but actually other physical factors such as population density and urbanization are also important because of? Also, it's mentioned the hazard profile in California, which could affect more than 50% of the relative area, which is 5 times larger than any other hazard. What does that mean? Where's the evidence from that? Does it link to the question there? If we look at the next paragraph, now, a heck of a lot of writing here, but what you can see, it's got explicit terminology for assessment. Major feature that affects its severity is its magnitude. It's very detailed. It's got lots of case study information in there as well. But the problem is, could you have written this in the exam? Bearing in mind you've only got about 15 minutes, it would probably take you that to write that in the time. So it's got all of the right information. It is a brilliant paragraph, but maybe it's too good to be able to do in an exam. So think about, okay, how could we simplify it? Could we, instead of going on to this detailed explanation on this section here, is think, let's go straight into a case study and use that as part of it. So I'm not saying that you lose all of this section here, but you could easily reduce that and link that into the case studies here. Then if we look at this one, again, very simple. It's a lot better structure. It goes straight into it's very important, explicit. It goes on to the case study and explains. This shows that. So it's explaining through the case study. It's not having to repeat itself. Now, normally I always try and recommend using an alternative case study, But this one is still really effective because it said that, yes, the magnitude was important, but also these other factors, large population density, proximity to the epicenter was also important. So showing there are other factors which are relevant. So this would have got full marks, but again, could there be areas to improve it and reduce the size of it? What could you take out but still keep the quality of information there? Now, just to go back, which three of those essays have looked at the structure which I gave you here, or which three of those paragraphs? Remember your point. Magnitude is a key factor determining the severity of an impact. For example, in Haiti, magnitude 7, 250,000 people died because of collapsing buildings, However, in Japan, Tohoku 2011, it was 100 times more powerful, magnitude 9. But due to excellent planning and building design, far fewer buildings collapsed, leading to far fewer deaths directly from the earthquake. You might mention that there were deaths because of the magnitude by the following tsunami, which would then back up the fact that magnitude is important. But you're giving a point, you're saying it's important, but other factors come into play. And then you have a therefore sentence at the end of it as well. So again, it's now time to read and pause. So this is another paragraph from the same essay. So pause and read. And another paragraph, pause and read. And another paragraph, pause and read. Okay, so we just go through the paragraphs. All three of the paragraphs are really, really good. There's nothing wrong with any of them. They've got good explicit and implicit judgment. They're well explained. There isn't a great deal of case study knowledge, but they have shown a really good understanding of it. So they're all really, really strong. But again, are some of them trying to cover too much and link too many factors? So again, D and E are both very, very strong answers. If we compare it to F though, F is much, much shorter, much more doable within the exam. And to be honest, although the explanations aren't as detailed, this is still a really good paragraph. It's not about how much you write. The fact that this is concise, short and sweet and to the point makes it really effective. It's got all the things that you need. It's got implicit and explicit. It's used a link to a case study and it's linked different factors and it's got this little link back at the end of it. So think about how you could look at those other paragraphs. Can you simplify them and compare them to your own? Have you written too much? Or have you not written enough? Have you made these links? Have you got these key terms in there? Now, the final thing we're going to look at is the conclusion. What I'd like you to do is just read through these three conclusions and pause the video again. Okay, so you've had a chance to read through them. Remember, you've got to relate to the question. So if we look at this first one, overall, the hazard profile is useful and it would hugely increase if used alongside other methods of analysis, such as the PART model or the risk equation. Is this relevant? The first bit is good, but is this bit relevant? Does it answer the question directly? If we look at this next one, it's talking about the tectonic hazards are very important as they present the characteristics. However, the severity of impact can also be heavily influenced by human and physical factors. Perfect. An assessed question only needs a really simple conclusion. This would be perfect. Again, when we look at this final one, this allows for mitigation strategies. It's not asking for that. It's simply asking for you to answer the question. Now, I know that was quick. It's hard to do in this manner, but I hope you found it useful. Email me if you've got any questions. Thank you very much. Bye.